Hey, it's Next Fest time. This one's in October. It's the most wonderful time of the year, almost. And this time we're talking about our favorite games, yet again, from this event. I'm joined by Danny O'Dwyer.
Video games, there's too many of them. Let's filter it for people.
And Jeremy Jane.
I also love video games.
We all do, and we have 9 to share with you of our favorite demos from this Steam Next Fest.
Let's start with the shortest one I am going to explain today, because what I'm going to say is, hey, do you remember those Commandos games? I feel like if you listen to No Clip Crewcast, you've heard myself and Jeremy every once in a while reminisce on those beautiful little isometric games where you had toy soldiers and you told them where to go, and they were, you know, strategy games that were based in a war, and it was fun, but it wasn't too complicated, because for some reason nobody bought Desperados 3 and it was so good. But maybe it was because it was too complicated, I don't know. Commandos Origins is here to test out that theory. It is a new Commandos game. It is a prequel, while also being a sequel. It looks beautiful like those old Commandos games, and I would say it is, at least from the demo I've played, on the easier side of your sort of isometric tactical World War II game. But I've really been enjoying it, and I'm excited to see more.
So one of the things I liked about the old Commandos games was the pre-rendered isometric fixed camera, little like staring into a diorama feeling. Does this capture it in 3D?
Yeah, so it is 3D, and there's no getting away from that. It's not like beautiful hand-drawn pixel art that made those games so gorgeous. It's kind of those, like, when I was playing it, it was how I imagined Commandos was. Like, it looks very like it. It has, like, the same, you know, twee voice lines from the characters when you move them and stuff. You know, it's very much like sort of Indiana Jones style baddies and combat and things like that. So yeah, it's not that. It's not one of those. It's definitely 3D, but I think it does a good job of evoking that style.
All right, the first game I want to talk about today is Trip. This is I don't even know how to describe this game. It's kind of a colorful, over-the-top, psychedelic horror game in first person. It's a very short demo you can get through very quickly, so I highly recommend you take like 5 minutes and just have this experience for yourself. But you're on a train and you go from one end of the car to the next, and it kind of just loops into the same train car, but everything is different, and it keeps doing that and it keeps doing that, and you're like, I don't understand where to go in this game. And then something happens that I will not spoil, but there is an aha moment where I was like, the game went from, oh, this is interesting and colorful and kind of vibey, to like, oh, holy shit, this game is doing some crazy things. And it goes places that I feel like I've been waiting for horror games to go. It does like kind of like Philip K. Dick cosmic horror in a way that I have not seen many other games do. So highly recommend Trip.
You know, I've played this one too. I think Trip is just, you're totally right. It is a trip, it perfectly titled video game. One of those things where you're just like walking through it, waiting to figure out what's going on, and the light bulb comes over your head and you realize, oh, okay, I'm playing one of those. Did you feel like there was anything maybe more esoteric going on? You mentioned that there's something that happens near the end. Did you feel your brain expanding as you reach the ending?
Yeah, it does this thing that I love when games do, which is the thing that you need to do to progress is basically, it kind of like hints at it a little bit if you talk to everyone and exhaust every dialogue option, but it has so much trust in the player that, like, I'm sure there will be people who will play this demo and not know what the fuck to do and not figure it out. Yeah. And I feel like that makes it extra special for the people who do figure it out, and they're like, it gives them an aha moment. It gives them enough rope to hang themselves with. That's probably not the best metaphor here, but it trusts the player to figure it out on their own in a way that makes it feel special.
So the first one I want to share is Sektori, I think is how you say it. Sektori, maybe? I love Geometry Wars. Geometry Wars Retro Evolved, or whatever the full title is like the game I played on Xbox 360. It was the game on that console for however long. And this is a modern re-examination of that series. I think Geometry Wars 3 had its problems, a little too much content, a little too much, how do we spin this and make it interesting? Whereas Sektori is doing the base Geometry Wars thing of twin stick shooting from a neon aesthetic. It's got all these bright colors and loud banging music and the sort of heart bumping dodging and weaving between bullets and enemies, and your eye, you can't blink or you'll miss something kind of gameplay, but it does it on like a whole new aesthetic level. Geometry Wars gets really bright and flashy, but this is going like almost, it feels almost like Thumper, that game from a couple years ago, in terms of like how raw and jagged some of the visual elements are. It evolves the gameplay a little bit in a way that I think is actually really smart. So the map changes over time. Every couple of seconds, part of the map will disappear or reappear, and you have to adjust your positioning based on that. There's bits of the map that you can teleport to, because sometimes when the map changes, you can get locked in, but there's like teleporters that will bounce you to a new area, and that becomes part of the combat also, because it makes a little explosion when you land. There's just so many interesting mechanics built on top of a great base for Geometry Wars, and there's boss battles. That's amazing. Love it.
I'm watching the trailer here, Jesse, and I'm seeing something I've seen in a lot of Steam Next Fest demos, which is you have evolved and you get to pick some type of bonus to your character. Is this a Vampire Survivors like as well?
Not in the slightest. I mean, technically,
Okay.
I guess you could say it is. It's like if Vampire Survivors is a reverse twin stick shooter, this is just a twin stick shooter with upgrades.
Good point.
The upgrades aren't overly deep. They add a little bit of stuff. Like one of the ones you get drones that do extra shots and stuff like that. So they're little things that just make the combat slightly easier, give your builds a couple more options. There's also multiple game modes.
Is there pacifist mode?
It looks like it. Not in the demo, but there's something called like 80 gates, which I think is similar to the pacifist mode from Geometry Wars 2. Not 100%. But if it has that mode, please, someone check on me 1 week after this game launches. I might be stuck in my room in a dark, just like drunken state playing that mode.
Who wants to be a Ballionaire? It's the question we've all been asking ourselves, and you can finally answer it with Ballionaire. Ballionaire, it's basically Vampire Survivors Pachinko. I guess you could interpret that in lots of different ways, but effectively there is a Pachinko type of grid, so it's like an area, a ball is going to drop down, and then each time you sort of level up, you get to add new bonuses to where the dots would be on the Pachinko board that the ball would hit. And there are just a billion different things that they can do. You can have one that splits it out into different balls. You can have one that bounces it back up again. You can have portals. You can have ones that, if you don't touch them when the ball goes down, you get money for it. You can have ones that multiply if you have a certain number of these pegs on the board. It's completely bananas. The graphics, I don't know how to explain. I mean, you're looking at this in a video. You can look at these graphics. It's kind of like a 6-year-old drew them, but but then AI fixed them. I don't know. It looks toy-like and silly and nonsense. And Vampire Survivors as a game concept is already so silly. And the only thing I think that could make it even sillier is to take even more control out of the player's hand by just having it be Pachinko, which is the most controlless game you can imagine. It's strategic, of course, because you're trying to guessing where the ball might go. But I've been really loving it. It's a real, very Moorish game. The art style, I think, matches the sort of ridiculous sensibility of it.
How do you lose? Is there like a score threshold that you hit for? I'm just curious, like what your role is in this game.
Well, it's Ballionaire, so of course there are a number of, polytheistic gods that you have to make sure are happy by reaching certain score totals, Jeremy. Not even score totals, money. So it's in dollars. Each round is like a new weird god that basically you need to get a certain amount of cash. And then you can blow through it, and you often do. You often just completely burn through what they actually wanted for you, and then there's bonuses and stuff like that. But that's how you do it, and then eventually, you bust out. Basically, you go back and much like a lot of these games, there are some meta stuff, meta upgrades that you can do that are permanent as well. And then you're unlocking new modes and new maps and stuff like that.
Those upgrades that you get that change things up, because whenever I'm looking at a roguelike, I'm thinking, how do these synergies work? Is there a way to turn the game into just the most ridiculous, mind-numbing, flashing colors moment? Does Ballionaire have a lot of that stuff where you can see, I'm going to make this ball bounce a lot? Is there stuff like that?
100%. It is. You know that moment in Peggle, the ultimate Pachinko game, where the thing is going like do 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 do, and then it goes like da da da, and it gets like that high. You will get to notes that you previously did not know exist in Ballionaire. It like the amount of time you spend in that space where just 1,000 things are happening. I'll be honest, half the time I don't have a fucking clue what's going on because I'm the specifics of the pegs, and by the time you've got a full board, I mean you might have 30 pegs on there all doing something else, and it's impossible to read what's going on. But, like a lot of these games, eventually, like Balatro, similar thing, right? Like eventually you understand the game, you understand what the jokers are doing, and then you can see through the matrix. But it's got that energy 1,000%.
All right, my next game is Sorry We're Closed. This is my game of Next Fest. This is the game that I was the most excited by. I could not put down this demo. Sometimes I cut myself off when I'm loving a demo because I want to play the full game. I literally could not stop playing this, and I will play the whole game again, probably multiple times. This is a colorful, bombastic, campy, over-the-top, sort of queer survival horror game is how I would explain this. Clearly taking inspiration from games like Silent Hill, especially. It has sort of the semi-fixed camera perspective, cinematic little, like, it pivots as you walk through the hallway with you and kind of limits your angle so that a monster can sneak up on you effectively. But it also has first-person combat. So you get an axe, you get a gun, you get a shotgun, and you switch into first person. But not only that, you have a curse upon you that allows you to slip into the demon realm, and it's a third eye that lets you see like other dimensions. And if you get close enough to enemies, it reveals a weak point on them. So there's this kind of risk-reward push-pull where you're trying to get in really close to enemies, expose yourself to danger so that you can conserve ammo by doing really effective shots on their weak points. And yeah, just generally, it has unbelievable art. The character design is like, I don't know, is the word iconic too strong for a game that I've only played the demo for? This feels like it will be an iconic survival horror game. And it has a flavor that is unlike any other game I've ever played. It is over the top, colorful, bombastic, bright, saturated, and psychedelic and weird and great.
The art style is so like inviting. How does that, I guess, compare to the fear element of a survival horror game? Like, is it scary to play?
So it's an interesting element. They sort of they tie the aesthetic duality into the third eye thing, because when you use the third eye, it sort of reveals the normal version of the world that's underneath the Silent Hill other world version of it. And so some characters also have alternate versions. So there's this sort of like pink sleep paralysis demon in high heels that comes into your room at the beginning, and then you see an alternate sort of like palette swap for that character who is like a tall, sexy, more like human-looking demon person. So yeah, no, they're the enemies are like little gross Silent Hill mutant rats and shit like that. But yeah, it plays with that perspective really effectively. It kind of swings back and forth between like, oh, that's like a sexy person. Oh no, they're a demon. Oh, but they're like a sexy demon, and it like keeps pendulum swinging between the two.
I played this at PAX with Akupara Games was there showcasing it, and I feel like I remember there being a lot of really kind of like surprisingly good uses of that dimension shifting you can do for the puzzles. Do you have any thoughts on the puzzles in Sorry We're Closed?
Yeah. That's one of the things that I love about the sort of like third eye dimension shifting stuff is it's aesthetically brilliant to be able to like see a second layer to every environment. B, it has combat mechanic tie-in with the revealing the weak points thing, and C, it has like a puzzle dimension to it where you're I'll give one example. There's like a metal crate that has an item inside of it, like a rusty Silent Hill cage with an item inside of it, and I was like, I can't break this, I can't shoot it, there's no lock to shoot, and then it clicked that you just do the third eye thing, and in the third eye revealed dimension, it's like a crate you can break open, so it changes the dynamic, or there's like traps you can walk through, but only if you have your third eye open and stuff like that. So it taps into every element of the game: aesthetic, combat, exploration, puzzle. But anyway, yeah, this is my favorite game by far of Next Fest, and it comes out in less than a month, so wishlist this game. I'm very, very excited for it.
You know, I love me a good rhythm game. I love, playing Guitar Hero, pressing buttons, playing Dance Dance Revolution. And finally, we have a new one, a new indie game in the same style called Rift of the NecroDancer. This is a sequel to Crypt of the NecroDancer from Brace Yourself Games. It is taking the mechanics of Crypt of the NecroDancer, where you're fighting these enemies with different patterns in a rhythm-based gameplay style, and taking that and transposing it onto the Guitar Hero or Dance Dance Revolution sort of note track. So now when you're doing the combat, you're still pressing the same sort of buttons you would use, up, down, left, right, but you're doing it in a way where it's a lot more streamlined. You don't have to worry about your positioning so much. You have to worry a lot more about the timing of different buttons and enemies as they move towards you. When I started doing the tutorial, I was like, this is a rhythm game. I've played one of these before. But then it showed you how far it can go when you start playing on higher difficulties. And I was like, okay, I could see this consuming a lot of my time. When the enemies move towards you, they have different tactics. So like a blue slime will take 2 hits, but a blue bat will take 1 hit and then change its lane. So now if it took up to hit it, you got to hit right. And this can work in conjunction with other enemies. There's loads of different ones, and it keeps stacking up as time goes on. The music is really good. It's a lot of the same composers from the first game, some guest composers, it sounds like. And then there's a whole other part to Rift of the NecroDancer that's not introduced in the demo, that's been shown in a bunch of trailers, where they're doing sort of rhythm heaven mini games. They're doing elite beat agents. Like, this seems like it's going to be a big homage to a lot of those Nintendo more cartoony rhythm games, while still appealing to people who are looking for that hardcore rhythm gameplay experience.
The character designs are incredibly beautiful and expressive in this. Does it feel like, I don't know if you got a sense from this from the demo, but does it feel like there is going to be sort of a longitudinal like story arc in this?
Yeah, from the trailers, because again, none of that stuff's in the demo, but from the trailers, it looks like there's a lot of characterization that's going to come through in the narrative. I don't know if it's voiced or anything, I can't remember, but the characterization comes through in the portraits that are appearing on the sides of the Guitar Hero tracks or Dance Dance tracks. They have like a lot of expression, and as your health goes down, you can see them sort of like getting exhausted, and that's their personality comes through in those animations and the way that they're affected by their health. And then you have this in the same way as Guitar Hero, sort of like a power-up mode, like a star power mode, where your character goes like Super Saiyan and starts like flashing, and all the things give you more points and stuff. So there's a little bit of that coming through in just the character portraits. It's obviously a very expressive art style, and they've done a good job of that as well.
I'm looking at this like Guitar Hero ass, notes coming down the pipe or what baddies coming towards you thing, and I'm thinking I want to have a guitar in my hand. But how are you controlling this? Are you using keyboard and mouse? Are you using a pad?
I was thinking the same thing. I really want to play this on a guitar or on a Dance Dance pad. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I was playing this on keyboard, which I think works perfectly fine. It's all the same arrows on the screen. Actually, one of the things that is a little bit confusing, and they give you an option for it, which I think is smart, is there's 3 buttons you can hit, obviously left, up, right. But if you want to hit all 3 buttons at the same time, instead of clawing your fingers, you can just press down on the keyboard. But if that feels wrong, you can flip the keys. So they're thinking ahead on that sort of stuff. But I agree with you. If they could release an exclusive Rift of the NecroDancer Guitar Hero controller or Dance Dance pad, I will pay whatever they want.
The Precinct is a game where you play as a cop. A cop in a world where cops are cops from cop TV shows you remember of days of yore. And the gameplay visually kind of looks a little bit like, little matchbox cars you'd sort of like, play with. Dinkies, as we used to call them in Ireland, that you'd play on the in your bedroom floor. The Precinct it's not a serious cop game, let's say. I'm feeling very split up about the Precinct. We talk about it a bit more in this week's podcast. It's not like a serious contemporary cop story, but also I feel like there's something going on under the surface, and it's also not like just a cop, German Autobahn cop simulator game, which there is also quite a lot of. It has personality. I like the art style and the camera, because it's like this sort of floaty, quite far back look to it. There's lots of different things. Sure, the first mission is basically you gunning down a bunch of bank robbers, but after that, you get to spend some time giving parking tickets and arresting people for doing graffiti, or not arresting them because they didn't assault you. Spoilers, some of them do. Graffiti people are not to be trifled with. So it's kind of goofy and dumb, and I think that's why I like it. But I'm also hoping that maybe there's something else under the surface, because after all, you do play a character of a cop whose father was killed in action. So presumably you're there to get some justice, if you will.
Yeah, how much of a sense of... So I did not finish the demo because I was very intrigued by this game, and I kind of want to go in blind to the full thing. Did you get a sense of how much there was going to be pure sandbox experience versus story? Because I could see this game going either direction.
Yes, I think that's the biggest issue with the demo, is that they kind of want to show you a lot of this game. So they're like, look, here's what combat is like with guns. Here is what it's like chasing down people, and, you're pressing buttons to call for backup or get a spike strip put out. There's even a level where you're literally like flying the chopper for the Precinct and like chasing after a guy who's trying to evade the police. So it's hard to tell because it feels sandboxy. In the Steam page, they refer to it as a neon noir action sandbox police game. There's definitely a main story, but I actually don't know once you play the full game how much that opens up. Like, can I spend my day just giving people parking tickets and knocking heads of graffiti punks, before a story mission happens? I'm not quite sure. If I was to guess, I would say there are days where you're kind of doing your own thing and maybe working on the main quest as well. And then maybe there's times where they force the matter and it becomes a narrative moment. But yeah, the jury's out on that.
There's a lot of opportunities to do quieter moments, I feel like, in a cop game where you're not doing stuff. Or not doing, police stuff. There's a lot of giving tickets and dealing with people, but do you get to spend any time with, and maybe this isn't in the demo, but do you get to spend any time with your partners or other police officers just clowning around, getting coffee and donuts? Cops do that, right?
Yeah, every day in the demo starts with you sort of like in the room at the start where, people are kind of talking about what they're going to do that day, or, you start in the precinct at the least, and sometimes you walk in on meetings and stuff is happening, or, in the demo you start to get to know people like the evidence locker room person and stuff like that. And you do spend time, like when you get perps, you can either like call for another car to pick them up, or you put them in your car and then drive them back to the station and bring them in for central booking. Like, all those moments are the things that I think are neat and cool. Not necessarily the, gunfights with the guys who immediately open fire on you. So there is some of that for sure. I don't know how much of it there is. And I ultimately kind of feel like maybe the success of the Precinct will be in, creating those moments of drama when there is, the threat of real physical violence, by maybe giving you more of time when with the slower, more or less dangerous stuff, I guess.
I'll be curious to see how far they go in either direction of that line between sandbox and story, because I feel like there's a world in which sandbox games are fun because they give you an incredibly long leash and you can like catch a bank robber, bring them to justice, and then just like breathalyze them for no reason. You know what I mean? Or just be like, hey, I know you just like shot 6 people. Can you walk a straight line and say the alphabet backwards? That's what I want to do. Yeah. StarVaders is my final game. I feel like Jesse might have mentioned this in the past, so apologies if I'm speaking out of school here and you're the expert, but StarVaders is it's a lot of things. It's a deck building roguelike that is kind of also like old arcade games sort of in its format. Basically, you're a robot on a grid and enemies are coming down the grid towards you. And if they get into your zone if they get into your end zone, it's kind of like football. They start accruing doom on a meter, and if the doom meter fills up, you lose. So essentially what you're doing is you're using cards in your deck to move, to shoot, to throw bombs, to like combine all of these different strategic elements to destroy these units before they reach your end zone. It's not a sports game. I need to stop saying end zone. But yeah, it's really interesting. It has a little bit of Slay the Spire in its DNA. It has a little bit of old arcade games. It has a little bit of like Into the Breach kind of. It's interesting. It combines elements of so many different things, but it feels like it has found its own identity that doesn't remind me of any of those things too much. Just the right amount of like a little dash of this, a little dash of that.
Yeah, I have played so many hours of this game at this point. I started playing it at PAX East. It was one of the first booths I went to, and I think I went there every single day at least once or twice to play it. It's just so much fun. The strategic gameplay that comes from the positioning of your robot on the screen is just so smart, and the way it plays into the different cards and options that you have for them. They actually included a robot or a mech, whatever, in this demo that wasn't in the older versions. That is, I think it's called the Stinger, that lets you like throw shurikens, but the cards are on the board after you throw them. So there's more strategy past just how do you hit these robots. You also have to think, if I throw this card, I can physically go grab it and then do another attack with that same one. There's just so many different layers to the gameplay for something that on the surface seems straightforward enough, but clearly it has the depth to have that much variety between the different mechs. That to me is the sign of a really, really strong roguelike. I keep thinking about it. The design,
I've got a question about pacing. Is this, I can't tell if this is something where it's like Tetris, where they're coming down slowly or they're coming fast, or it's turn-based. What's the pace of it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's turn-based. It kind of goes as fast as you want it to. So I feel like when I did the tutorial, it felt like a very slow, glacial, meditative game. And then as you sort of get into your flow, you kind of know exactly what you want to do each turn. And you're kind of just like spitting out cards, they move, and then it goes as fast as you want it to. I feel like it, the ground rises to meet your feet in terms of pacing.
My last game is Luma Island. Now, look, I don't get down with the cozy games, all right? I'm not one of those guys. I don't like farming. I'm not a big fan.
You're a real gamer.
Exactly. I like performing crimes in my games.
Killing people.
No, don't quote me on that one. But Luma Island is the first one to really get its hooks into me in a very, very long time. This is a 3D social life sim sort of game. That's maybe the wrong way to phrase it. You're doing a lot of like Stardew Valley style stuff. The setup for the game is you're trying to get out in the rural life. You buy a camping van that you work out of at the beginning, and you start figuring out how to live out there. You build a crafting bench. You've done this before. But then eventually you're given the task to go to town. And this was when I knew I was playing something that was going to just get me going. So the first thing you have to do is pick a profession. And they're all like pretty straightforward and fun, but one of them is brewer. You can be a brewer who makes beer and other libations. And I think this, it got me. I was like, okay, cool. And now I'm like doing everything in the game. You only get 5, I believe, in-game days to go from start to finish. And then it has its sort of something big's about to happen. And then it cuts to the end of the demo. And I was like upset because I was having so much fun in this beautiful, just wonderfully rendered world where I could finally live out my dream of owning more than 3 acres of land.
These games often like go in different directions when it comes to like how much of this is about optimization and how much is about just creating an aesthetically pleasing farm around your house. Like, where does this sort of sit?
Yeah, this is way more laid back. Luma Island is a lot more focused on you just taking your time and doing what you feel like doing. The optimization just is not there. A lot of it is let it happen, but it doesn't take too long. You can go and collect your fruit whenever you feel like. There's some crops that will be sort of infinite. There's a little bit of magic going on here. But for the most part, it's a lot more about just performing the tasks you want to do, taking it easy, just like you're on a vacation where you're time is just filled up with these small, simple tasks. Actually, one of the things that's not farming or job related, it might be in one of the professions actually, is there's caves that you can go into. Like next to your house, there's a little cave that has stuff you can mine. And then there's also these like abandoned temples that you can go into that have these little puzzles to solve and things to find. And so there's a lot of different things you can do outside of just the farming that I found myself really enjoying.
Yeah, that was actually related to my question. Is one of the job classes like a adventurer or like a fighter or something?
Yeah, one of them's an archaeologist. I haven't gotten to do that one. It's a little like one of the higher level, more difficult ones. The combat's not like super deep. So far, all I have is a whip, and you can hit things with the whip, and you gotta hit them a couple times. I don't think I would come to this game for combat at all, but the stuff that's not fighting the spiders or whatever enemies show up, there was a ghost that chased me in my area around my farm. But anything that's not that, the temples are very fun. The puzzles are good. There's a lot of stuff to find in the area that feels like a secret that's revealed over time. It also has co-op, which feels like something that's common in this genre, but I don't know. There's something about the way that it looks to me that is so appealing and makes me just want to keep coming back to it. That like almost GameCube, almost high-res Nintendo 3DS look is just, it's getting me right in the nostalgia bones. So those are some of our favorite games from this Steam Next Fest. This is the last one of the year, so look forward to next year when we're covering even more games from different events throughout the year. And let us know in the comments what demos you enjoyed from this Steam Next Fest, because there's way, way, way too many, and we did not cover anything close to all of them. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next year for another Next Fest.
See you next year. Bye. Say bye, Jeremy.
Bye, Jeremy.